living glam, living rock, living with Jonathan and Katy.
Welcome
to
to Living with Jonathan and Katy.
I was just thinking about, okay, here's a question, pop
Yes,
quiz.
Katy French.
Of the mid-2000s, of all the mugshots we got of starlets, Nicole Richie, Paris Hilton, Lindsay Lohan, Heather Locklear got a mugshot for pills.
Forgot.
I hate it's so resentful when these celebrities, they go in and they take really good mugshots. Like, do you remember what they looked like? Who had the best mugshot?
Definitely not Lindsay Lohan. She had one good mugshot.
Her pupils were like that.
Well, she's had many, but there was only one time she had a legitimately glam mugshot, and it is when she had blonde hair. She actually looked really good with blonde hair.
The Paris was kind of just like, she was just like drunk, as was Nicole Richie. Heather Locklear was on pills.
I don't remember Heather.
Her pupils were crazy. She looked like she had black eyes, like a vampire who had like not feasted for a while, because they were just like, her pupils were out here. Much like yours looks right now.
Okay, well, first of all, my eyes are dark brown, so that's why they look like that. I don't have blue eyes like Katy French. So on Zoom, they're going to look like vampiric black eyes. It's the filter.
Mine look like...
In person, you can see that I have a dark chestnut colored eye with a lot of like leopard designs inside. Isn't that weird how eyes are like leopard or feathers inside? Eyes are like either spotted or feathers.
Yeah, you know? I never know what to put on my license, because if you look at me, actually, do I have blue eyes or do I have green eyes?
I always say that you have blue eyes, but I do know in person when you put on certain eyeshadow, they've looked legit green.
They're very, if you look up close, it's literally like blue, green, yellow. So
oh yeah,
it depends on the day and on the design. But yeah, it's fun. I do love like a leopard eye with little specks in it.
And what I was telling Katy before we started recording was that I've been wearing my glasses a lot recently, and I'm just like, now that I took the glasses off for the Zoom meeting, I'm just in love with my eyes. And not so much the color, like the color is brown, it's fine, but the shape of them, they're just so beautiful. I always forget that I have like beautiful almond shaped eyes. It's true. Like, they're not like round eyes, and they're just this beautiful, like, I'm like, these eyes are great.
Are you like, I'm in love with the shape of...
It's because I have cat eyes, because I have that pointy tear duct in the middle. You know what I mean?
Do you ever do a winged liner?
All the time when I do drag. Like drag inside the apartment. I don't go out and do drag professionally.
Yeah.
Yeah,
no,
but
you
I almost always do a wing eyeliner. Yeah.
Stunning eyeliner. I have friends who just had a baby, and that baby has, it appears to have been born with a full set of double lashes. Like, every time you see the baby, it's like a little baby face, and then it's literally like Trixie Mattel. Like, it is crazy.
Wait. Let's give a shout out to the parents.
Different parents, but very cute. But congratulations to Mark and Jicky on their beautiful baby, Amelia.
Oh, I love that name. Is it Amelia with an E or an A?
A.
With an A. Okay. Well, I have my cousin Chris, his daughter is Amelia it's Emilia with an E. So I love that name.
Yeah, it's very beautiful, and she's adorable. She's literally, her little face is a perfect little pink moon. She had her little cheeks. She's like a perfect little, I'm going to go meet her through the window of their house. Probably the next week.
She looks so beautiful on the picture that you sent. You sent me the picture, right? Because I also was creeping on Mark Mendez's Instagram, and I saw these like beautiful black and white photos that he posted of like the pre-birth experience and everything like that. And then after, like, she actually had a photo of when the doctors were like holding her up. Did you see?
Yeah, it was so cool.
It was gorgeous. I'm so happy for them. Yeah. Oh, speaking of the 2000s, any listeners or watchers out there, you should tune into the El Rey Network. It's a Latino network owned by Robert Rodriguez, the director. And comedian Vanessa Gritton has a show on there called Top 5, and I'm on it tonight. But they're going to be rerunning the episode for the next week, and they're going to be rerunning it a lot. We checked the schedule. So if you have El Rey Network on your cable package, or you can find someone's cable code or whatever, watch it. It's just like a fun show where Vanessa invites comedians and like funny actors and stuff on to, you know, talk about different things. But tonight's episode was fads of the 2000s, which is so us, you know.
So on brand. And as I was telling Jonathan earlier, I mean, you are the amazing unicorn that was like, I'm going to go into quarantine and I think I'll make my debut on television during quarantine. Like, incredible. And this was an in-studio appearance too. So it was like not some like dumb Zoom. No,
no. Well, it was over Zoom, but it wasn't.
Oh,
it wasn't Zoom. No. They can't do in studio right now. So usually El Rey's shows are in studio, and they usually have like really nice studio because like the El Rey Nation shows like a nice studio. They had me download this special software so it wasn't Zoom because they were like, Zoom is shitty, we can't like do, no offense to Zoom, but like it's not good for TV, you know.
So sorry for your sponsorship.
So they had me download this like demon software. It took forever, like which understandable, I'm not complaining, like to set up. So like I had to do all this like technical stuff, and like the director was like in my ear but I couldn't see him on the camera. It was so weird. So they're directing you from like a remote location and they're like in your ear while you're talking to like in between takes, while you're like talking to like Vanessa and then the other guest who's this guy named Hector Navarro, like so it was like a legit cool experience to film it. But I was only lucky to get it because Vanessa just thought of me. It's her show, so she just was like, oh, I know this person, and she just like asked me to be on it. So
that's awesome. Do you feel like after shooting that show, do you feel like you and the crew are really family now?
No,
Did
but I
you play
would
any
like
fun
to be.
pranks?
That's what I said after shooting. I don't know. I think it took like 4 hours to shoot the show or whatever, and yeah, after those 4 hours, I was like, guys, I really feel like we've connected on a deeper level, and I think like, who wants to go out for ice cream? I do. They were very nice though.
Yeah. It must be so awkward for people who like are on sets where one person really wants to hang with everybody and you're just like, so sorry, I have like another gig, or like, you know.
I mean, I guess I think it's just like, you know, those people who are just socially awkward, which I think I could be sometimes, but I'm socially awkward in a way where people think I'm mean, but I'm just being standoffish, right? I'm not like saying like, fuck you, bitch, you're a fucking little bitch. Like, I'm not out there saying that, but sometimes I won't talk to people because I'm a little standoffish. But some people are the opposite. They talk so much to everyone, yet they just arrived to where it doesn't even need to be like a Hollywood set, like just anywhere. You know, they just got there, people just met them, and they're already kind of forcing, you know, those people who like want to force a relationship.
We had an audition with a certain person once who was like, would not stop speaking, and none of us had met her or knew. It was crazy.
But that was a little different though, Katie, because she was obviously like just trying to get her little, like, she was trying to be featured in the audition. She was trying to get the part, right?
Yeah.
But she didn't get that this was like, she was just in the wrong audition because she was like an actress, and this was really an audition for like comedians and improvisers, because she just couldn't keep up, and the stuff she was coming up with was like not good. At one point, remember, she was like throwing chips at us. It was just not good. But I honestly felt bad for her because I just felt like she was just, this was not the right thing for her. You know, she wasn't crazy. This just wasn't the right thing for her. But there are people who you'll just be at, like, you just met them, right? And they're like already like trying to snuggle up to you and being like, we're best buddies. And it's like, you seem very nice, but I just met you, so I can't naturally make myself feel this way towards you. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Super creeps. I don't know how to, there needs to be a word for those people. They're like
desperate,
sad. And that's what we told her after.
No.
How else has your week been other than your premiere on, imagine where you like literally, what if you had sent out, I mean, it is truly so exciting that you like are having your TV premiere. It really is. But like, imagine if you'd sent out a Zoom red carpet party, like invite so that we could all co-watch. And then you were like, please, formal wear only.
I feel like if I did that, your boyfriend, the very savage Chris Estrada, would have said like, oh yeah, let's all say that we're gonna go, and then none of us log in, and I'm just like waiting there with like my little like party hat with my
your little champagne.
I have a rosé right here. No, but is this my TV debut? I guess it is because this is actual like on basic cable because
This is terrestrial, honey. This isn't online. This isn't
right. This
Facebook
isn't
Live.
streaming.
Yeah.
This isn't streaming because the only other TV thing, but it's not technically TV because it's streaming, was Out on Stage, the movie that I was in
Oh, that's
2 years
right.
ago.
You're
The
you're a
movie.
star of silver screen too.
um, but they remember the movie. They turned it into a TV like show on streaming. Like
Oh, chopped it up, yeah.
they chopped it up and then I think they like put in stuff that was cut from the movie or something and put it into episodic forms. But it's on like this streaming app called Deku, which I guess is only for this is gonna sound problematic, but I guess it's only for like gay men, like it's only content for gay men or something.
Yeah.
Which is I think the problem with why it's not like more popular because it's like well there are other people in the queer community and also in the world. But yeah, so I guess I was on that, but I never saw it because I don't have Deku. And I also don't have El Rey Network. I'm so sorry, El Rey Network. I don't have it. So I can't see myself on TV, which is the real tragedy in America.
Yeah. Do you think, okay, I just had this idea. This might change queer culture forever and your life forever.
Okay.
On OnlyFans or on like Twitter porn, do people like have sex to audio tracks of stand-up? The way that on TikTok people lip dub?
Oh my god.
What if people turn like fuck to your tracks? Could this change lives?
Yes, but I think it needs to be the right comedian because some comedians you do not want to fuck to their tracks because they're ridiculous, right?
I mean, most of them.
Right, but you know who would be great to fuck to? She's a wonderful comedian. She's one of my favorite comedians in the world, Wanda Sykes. Her comedy you could fuck to. She has sexy comedy.
You'd have to like, I feel like to do it, they would need to like kind of role play the scene, I guess, or like if you're doing kind of a storytelling bit, it's like this one time I got in a taxi and then they'd be like getting in the taxi but like taking their clothes off or something. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Who's another? Oh, honestly, Chelsea Handler's stand-up, whether you like it or not, I know some people don't like it, some people do. Her stand-up is good to fuck to because it's all stories about like weird, wild escapades and stuff like that. So you could totally do like a, you know, like a little drunk history reenactment and then end up fucking.
You should wait, okay, because you know how every comedian is like getting more and more gimmicky with their stand-up. Like one was like, it's a stand-up special, but there's no audience. And then other ones are like, I did it on top of the Empire State Building. You could be the like fuck comic where you maybe make an adult film of your own stand-up. I'm just saying.
But
as your agent, I think it's gonna win.
Not sure my boyfriend would be okay with that, but
honey, he's a featured artist. You could co-fuck.
His ass is too big to fit on screen, so no, in a good way. But yeah, what do you think about like gimmicky stand? Did you watch that stand-up special where there was no audience?
I watched almost zero stand-up specials because
in your life or in quarantine?
No, I mean in quarantine because it just also is like
reminder.
No, I mean not just that. It's like it's just hard to have the patience to like sit there and watch. Like we've seen so much comedy. I just feel like I don't know. I just don't have the patience for it. And so much of it, it's like I just feel like all stand-up specials can be boiled down to like one sentence. You know what I mean? Like all Burr lately is just like, these fucking liberal, female, you know.
That's a wonderful Burr and a wonderful Devin Costa.
And, you know, there's like 5 genres, but and all that to say, no, I haven't watched anything. I have been watching a lot of, I call it kitty TV, and that's my cat.
Oh, God.
He sits in my windowsill. My little baguette. He sits in the windowsill, and let me tell you, I'm so annoyed with him. He's so bougie because I got him freaking like dumb cat wand toys so he can like run and jump like a maniac. And you know, they're like look like birds and whatever. And like I got him a little like mouse that actually it's supposed to like go in a circle, but it literally just vibrates. It sounds very inappropriate on Zoom calls when it's like in the background because literally like zzz. I got him all these things, and the only thing he ever wants to play with is my freaking peacock feathers.
That's very he's homosexual.
I mean,
bougie was code for homosexual. Because all I've ever wanted to do is play with peacock feathers.
Literally all he does, like anything plastic, anything beneath it, he's like, ew. But then he'll be like, peacock feathers, love it. And also like my most expensive candles, that's what he wants to go like, you know.
That's what he wants to sit
He
on
wants
and
to
put
like
inside his little culo.
chomp on and just whatever. So I'm very annoyed at that on all of my glamorous breakable decor. But I like that he has taste at least.
But you have a kitten now, and that's your mom.
This is my life.
Yeah.
This is my life. I was just trying to do this call and just having to play with him, and it was like, how do you balance it all?
How do you balance playing with your kitten and being
With
on a
my
call?
baby tiger. You know what is hilarious though? I do now. This might be. I don't think it's I don't think it's animal abuse, but something is very funny.
Lord. Oh,
Funny
God.
out loud. Something very funny about him is like, so like cat teeth, they have like, you know, like vampire like incisors,
Yeah.
but all of their other teeth are like incredibly tiny. Like they're like tiny little baby mice teeth or something. So when he's sleeping, I do like to like manipulate his mouth so you can't see the incisors, you just see the like the square parts, and it looks like he has fake dentures in. Like,
Ew.
is that
Wait,
weird?
that is weird. It's not animal abuse. It's just creepy white lady cat stuff. But have you seen the viral picture that's going around on Twitter right now of the inside of a goose's mouth?
No, are they demon teeth?
Katie, they have like, the inside of their mouth looks like the alien mouth from Alien. They have teeth, very sharp, very pointy teeth on the top and the bottom of the inside of their beaks, but then their tongue has teeth all the way around on the sides of it. They are fucking scary, and everyone who's been bitten by a goose has been like, legit, it's traumatizing, and they will bite you and draw blood. Yeah.
I have been chased by many.
You have?
In the course of spell work.
You were trying to like conjure the moon, and then some goose was like, ah!
I spend a lot of time by lakes. I'm just saying. No, and I have told this story in my act before, but this is true. One time I was working. It's actually in a parking lot in a complex, or it's in a parking lot near a place that had like, you know how some apartment complex have like moats in them,
Yeah,
or whatever. I was walking by one, and I literally did hear like behind me, and I really thought it was a cat calling man, and I literally turned around and was like, oh my god, and it was a goose. It had followed me into the parking lot.
and it was like, girl, that big white ass.
It literally
girl.
said, that's why, because it literally went and I was like, oh man, I'm so sick of this, and it was a goose. So that's a real story from my life. It's just,
well, you're lucky that you weren't completely devoured by that goose, because these geese are not fucking around with their teeth, you know?
It's bizarre, and yet like whales, I feel like whales have no teeth, and then other animals have like funny little like round square teeth. Like they're all different demons.
I love whales. I just love watching like nature shows where the whales like come out of the water and then splash into the water, and I love their like language, and I love like they're like the elephants of the sea. Like they're so into their calves, and they mourn their calves, and they get really sad and depressed, and they'll get happy, and they like speak to each other through this like sonic underwater language. Like they are magical creatures. I love whales.
They truly are. And I feel like they like if you described a whale to me, I would be like, that doesn't exist. Like a thing that's like the size of a building and communicate, it's like sounds so magical. And also you realize why, like in pirate land, but like in sailor lore, like why there's so many ideas of sea monsters, because yeah, if you were just going and then you saw that thing come out of the water, you'd be like, what the hell?
I know, although it would be frightening to get swallowed up by a whale just randomly, but I feel like they're not really known for doing that. Like they're actually pretty well known for like helping humans. That's what's like really amazing about them. Like they're the ones who are like you heard those stories. Dolphins and whales are the ones for helping humans. Like someone's like out in the ocean, and then suddenly it'll be like, oh, this whale just like kept swimming by me the whole time, like just like keeping by me, you know. And I'm like, that's amazing.
That stuff makes me want to cry. Like truly, those like animals help things. I knew a girl who, so apparently in Hawaii, like there's whales, and you're not allowed to there's whales, but you can you're not allowed to approach them, but if they swim at you, like that's okay. Like if your boat, you know, is like among a herd and they're swimming. So she knew a guy who like kind of knew their migration patterns, so he like positioned their boat so that they were like ahead of the pack or whatever.
Yeah.
And so she like hopped in the water and she like swam with whales, and there was one, and she literally like, she was playing basically like fetch with it. It was like bringing this thing of like seaweed kelp, and she would toss it and it would go get it and like bring it like back to her. Literally, can you imagine? That just makes me like want to cry.
Now I feel like we're now getting into an area that I've really been meaning to talk about, especially with everything going on. Imagine our world if we were actually more in tune with nature, like how we are meant to be, how much more like loving to nature and animals that we would be. I'm not saying that there aren't dangerous animals, and whales are definitely dangerous. Like they could accidentally swallow you, maybe they could accidentally like drown you by accident. There's different things, but um more often than not, animals are more scared of us. And so for an animal to like be known for helping humans, like dogs or dolphins or whales do, like it's like incredible. I just feel like we are missing out on being more in touch with nature and wildlife, because like we have like a direct connection to them, and the fact that they feel that connection to us, where they're like, oh, I'm gonna help this human drowning, even though they actively destroy this ocean for us. Every year it gets worse. It's like, that's amazing that they just innately feel this connection to other living things around them. Like that's something that I feel like we need more in our society.
I have been reading a book on exactly this subject, and it is blowing my mind. And it's about the like basically the advent of like technology, television, all these things, and what it's done to us. And I've literally been like annotating it. Like it's so fascinating. But basically he was saying that a few things that blew my mind. Like most of the world was not paved like asphalt until like the 30s.
Right.
And even then many parts, like there's still like parts of rural Mexico or whatever that like, aren't paved.
Yeah.
But he was like, we spend our entire life in manufactured environments. Like your foot actually never touches ground like most of the time. Mm-hmm. That blows my mind.
It's
like
great. It's true.
That what it needs and what he talks about. I know everyone's always like, you got to get back to nature. You got, and then some people like city folk are like, I hate the bugs. I hate this and that. But what he's explaining is like, when you are not immersed in nature, you like one are not in reality, because nature is the only like, and now that we're in an era of like fake news and like, opinion as truth or whatever, like nature, you cannot deny nature. Like a tsunami will kill you, a bear will kill you, sunrises, sunsets. These are like undeniable facts, And so he's like, it gives you a sense of your place and your context in the world, and it like reduces your ego and and also reduces your ego and also makes you understand how connected you are to the environment. And we have such a we give animals a lot of credit for like having knowledge or having personalities or having whatever, but he's like, plants have an incredible knowledge that is like astounding. So, thus the whole pharmaceutical industry is like built on plants, it's plant products. But what really blew my mind was we love this show Life Below Zero. Have you ever heard of it?
I've heard of it, but I've never seen it.
It's about people. It's like a docuseries about people who live in the Arctic Circle. And these are people who like basically are survivalists, or like they just live alone. And there's this woman there who lives, she's incredible. She is like in her 50s. She lives alone. Her closest neighbor is 300 miles away.
Wow.
You literally have to like fly in fuel and gas. Like she's like the most badass person. But
right.
She says, she's like, look, I do have like satellites. I have weather forecasting. I have all these things. And she's like, I live among nature and I see the bears. By the way, she has 83 grizzly bears within 10 miles of her at all times. Those are the known ones that are tagged. And she's been
grizzly bears?
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
And she's been attacked, like mauled by a bear before. Crazy. Anyways.
Oh my God.
But she was saying, she was like, I can like look at satellites and all this stuff to like know what like weather patterns are happening or whatever. But she's like, the truth is, she's like, I just go and I look at my garden and my trees, because like I'll pull a tree and like branch off, and if it comes out easily, it means the tree is like not conserving its like, sap or whatever.
Right.
But she's like, but sometimes I'll go to pull and it is conserving its sap. And she's like, it shouldn't be, because it's not supposedly like time for winter. Inevitably 2 weeks later we have a freak blizzard, and it like fucking knew. And right. She's like, I watched the bears, they build their dens higher that year. I know that we're gonna have a double the snowfall. And she's like, no amount of technology is telling me that. It's like completely right. Nature speaking. So I feel like it really is about like reconnecting to like your heart. And somebody said too that they were like, when you spend more time in nature, you sync with the heartbeat of life, which I thought that was very beautiful. Right. Very calming. And it's like the only thing that, I don't know, it's just such a mystical power that we're so like not interested in. People think it's woo woo, or worse, like it's like the most sacred thing on earth, and it's the one thing that like all humans do is just destroy it and take it and like rape it basically.
I'll say this: the best sleeps I've ever had in my life have always been out in the middle of nowhere. So when I went up to like the Sonoma County area, like where your aunt lives, I went up there once because me and very funny comedian Rachel Mack went way north of there. We were going to do this cabaret show in Santa Rosa, which is like north of San Francisco, right? So then on the way back down, we stopped to spend the night at her friend's house who live into the forest. Like we had to drive up these dirt road hills at night in Rachel's little like Toyota Corolla from 2002 or something, and it was like not a good condition car. And I was very scared. And there were points where the road got so dark, Rachel had to get out of the car and walk ahead so she could make sure like, oh, the road actually goes this way or that way or whatever, right? So we finally find it our way into her friend's home, which is just like this like dirt driveway, but it's not a real driveway, right? And they have this like gorgeous like home in this clearing in the middle of the forest. And then they have this like cabin guest house, and they have a guest room inside the main home. So Rachel stayed in the guest room and I stayed in this cabin guest house, and it's like windows all around and a skylight, and it's just the forest and the sky. And it was the best night's sleep I've ever had. I literally slept 10 hours straight. And when I woke up, they were like, we were about to come check on you because like we didn't even know like where are you, you know? And I was like felt so rejuvenated and rested. And the same thing happened to me in the jungles of Hawaii. When me and my parents went there when I was 11, we got lost and we had to stay at this Japanese bed and breakfast in the middle of the jungle. It was like we didn't even know that it was there, and we just came across it, and it was so pitch black dark. We had to stop because we were like, we don't know where we're gonna go. And in Hawaii, they always warn like, if you don't know where you're going, stop, because like, you know, Hawaii is finite, so you could just tumble off a cliff. You don't know, you know, it's just pitch black. It was this beautiful, like very traditional wooden minimalist Japanese bed and breakfast. It was like one of the most beautiful places, not expensive. We just needed to stay there for the night. I slept on this like Japanese like fold out like floor like bed type thing, and I woke up and it was like the best night's sleep I've ever had. And I woke up and we were just surrounded by the jungle, and it was like one of the most pretty things I've ever seen in my life. Like I'll never forget it. And
That's
it
so
is,
nice.
I think as someone with sleep problems,
I know.
I
I was
think,
gonna say people don't know you have like sleep disorder,
yeah,
basically.
sleep
Like
disorder. Like,
you can't sleep ever,
no,
or not
like, so,
consistently.
no, not consistently. So I think there is a connection to my sleep problems kind of going away when I go deep into nature. You know, the same with Joshua Tree in the desert when we slept on that weird, we slept on like this rocky ground on this weird dude's campgrounds way out in the desert. I had a really good night's sleep, even though I was in a tent in the middle of the desert. I mean, thankfully, the desert at that time during the night was warmer because it was during summer months. But um, yeah, I think there's a connection to it about nature in some way.
It's incredible, like, and he talks about that too, especially like sleep and your internal clock. And I know
Yeah,
people like, I was like, oh yeah, like light pollution, but it's like no, it's like beyond that. It's very much like when you should be getting up, when you should not, you know.
right.
um and it's very interesting. I feel like something that has been really exciting for me is like, since I've moved into my new place, I've gotten plants, and everybody, plants are so hot right now. I know everyone's like, I'm a plant mom, but I feel like I couldn't like keep them alive before. I just didn't know. And now like I've been researching like each plant and like understanding, and like they're full on magic. And then I see they're like full on blooming. One like moves to the sunlight, comes back, it like opens. It's called a prayer plant. It opens and closes at night, which makes me like want to cry because I'm like, this is so magical. I know I keep saying I want to cry, which means I'm about to start my period, but plants are making me everything's cry. But it's so fascinating finding out how they grow, what they like. Even the fact that like if you grow lettuce in your garden, it bolts, which means it like comes up and turns bitter, and it's because it does that so the animals won't eat it, so it can like rejuvenate its seeds. Like,
That's so that's amazing. And it is true. Like my mom is a huge nature lover and gardener. Like whenever we were going on like family vacations as a kid, she never ever wanted to go to a city, which makes sense because she grew up mostly in the city. But remember, originally she's from rural Michoacan, Mexico, which is like a garden state. It's like a subtropical rainforest state. So it's basically like if a rainforest wasn't in the tropics, but it was in the mountains, right? But you're still getting the same amount of rainfall. So instead of that hot, humid weather, it's this fresh, really cool, wet, rainforesty weather. And so that's where she's from. So she loves plants and loves gardening. And she's taught my dad a lot. So my dad would tell me when I would live in these like dingy apartments, buy pothos plants for your apartment because pothos plants are the best air cleaners for apartments. And you don't need to buy a filter, buy pothos plants. And my dad was like, go down to the tianguis, the little swap meet down the street. He's like, guarantee you they will have pothos plants. And I went down and I bought two for 68 cents each. Yeah, they're very cheap. And I would not be good at taking care of it, right? And I would come home and the pothos plant would be absurdly wilted. Like it would still be green, but it would be dead. My dad would go water it, get some coffee grounds, put it in the soil. He goes, tell me what happens an hour later. An hour later, the pothos plant was like, bitch, I'm alive again. Like,
Literally, it's the
yeah,
most drama queen plant. I have two,
yeah,
and same thing. Like it freaks you out because it will look dead as hell, and then you
dead.
like water it, and it's like bitches, like it's
But
incredible.
but have you tried grounds of it? I think it works better if you use grounds of used coffee grounds because of the moisture, the nitrogen. Plants love nitrogen. The nitrogen in the coffee, if you just get like a pinch of it, push it deep into the soil, water the plant. Within an hour or two, that plant will look like it was just born, like it just came out of its plant's mom's pussy. Like that's what it looks like. It's amazing these like different tricks you can use to get these plants to live up. Oh, also, it is such a it is a drama king plant because we had it in the living room because we have a pothos here in the apartment. And in the living room, it just looked so beautiful. But it was always like, bitch, I hate it here. So its leaves were turning yellow. Literally, within 2 days of us moving it from the living room to the kitchen, it was like the most gorgeous plant ever. It was like, this is where I like it. I like it in the kitchen because I get the most sun, you
It
know?
is crazy. I mean, they really talk to you. Also, I have two of them, and I noticed when I got the cat, 90% of the plants in my house are toxic to cats and or fatal. Yeah, I was like, oh no, and I was so afraid because he was like really lethargic one day, like not like I could literally like pick him up like a rag doll and play with him, and he was not responding, and I was like, oh my god, did he like eat?
Eat a
Because
plant.
apparently all lilies can be fatal to cats.
Wow.
Interesting. But so I just moved stuff around, so like ones he couldn't get, the pothos and stuff. But those ones are my favorite too, guys. If you're just getting into plant lifestyles, get one of those because they're like resilient. They'll live forever. I got Rachel one, like I want to say 5 years ago. She still has it, and it's like its vines are everywhere. It's very glamorous.
So now that we're on touching on nature, let's talk about how California, Oregon, and Washington, the entire West Coast is on fucking fire from Southern California to Central California to Northern California to Oregon to Washington. This entire West Coast is on fucking fire. Have you seen these pictures going around today of San Francisco?
Yes.
It looks apocalyptic.
It's so much. So my aunt lives, as we know, in Sonoma,
Yeah.
and she's had to like seriously evacuate 2 of the 3 years. I went up there after the fires 3 years ago, where like a lot of her students lost their houses. Like it looked like a crazy. It looked like an apocalyptic war zone,
Yeah.
like the neighborhoods that just burnt to a crisp, and it would just be like a car just like melted into the ground,
Yeah.
and a
You
staircase
texted me
only
that.
remaining. It was like so crazy. And so my aunt, my poor aunt, and what's crazy is that usually these really bad fires happen in October, but they're happening like earlier this year, which is awful. And like, yeah, so my aunt is always having to evacuate. It's very scary. The fire 2 years ago got pretty close. Like, I mean, it's so sad. Her cat was trapped, and she finally would, through whatever means, because also in all these areas there's a lot of people. And here's a question for you: is like, if you owned a home, would you stay or go? I would go because I just don't think it's worth
Not
it.
worth it. No.
But her neighbors are real like kind of badass people that are like, I die on the land, you know. So anyway, they went and they saved her cat, but her cat was indoors for like I think like 8 days and had like eaten through everything. And when she got it, it smelled like a full on like toasted cinder, like his little fur.
Okay. Because
No,
of all
it's,
the ash it was probably collecting in the air.
and the smoke, I mean, it was like all around them. It was like pitch black. So
But
it's,
but
it's
these
awful.
pictures of San Francisco, I have never seen San Francisco like we've had fires down
Terrifying.
here where the you I mean we you and I both grew up in Southern California. We both have been around when there's been fire season. The air in the city looks like it's kind of under a permanent sunset, right? But the pictures that are coming out of San Francisco is like no, this isn't a permanent sunset. It looks like someone took a red scrim filter and like put it over the pictures. The pictures look fake. They look like someone literally just like took the picture through a rosé. It looks so awful. And now we're getting reports from San Francisco that past noon in parts of the city, it's just dark basically because
It's
there's so much ash blocking the sun.
and it's so toxic. It's so
So
dangerous.
bad.
It's all because of climate change. Like so awful. And another crazy thing is like because my aunt lives in the forest. Um, like when the wildfires come, the well, two people. My one, I have a friend who's a firefighter, and she had told me this too. Like when the wildfires come, all the wildlife like rushes, tries to get away. So they
Right.
end up like in your garage and whatever. Or my firefighter friend was like, literally, we'll come across, you just come across a pile of bones, and it's like, oh, that was a bobcat or that was a mountain lion.
Shit.
Like crazy,
Like
like it's so common.
just burnt bones.
Just like
Shit.
like it's just like incinerated. Yeah, it's like totally terrifying. I don't know what to do. Like nobody takes shit seriously. It's honestly, if I were not religious, literally, I would be like, seems like a lot of the apocalypse stuff is happening. Like the
It's
Antichrist is
true.
here. There's lakes of fire. I don't know. It's
But
so
here's the thing though, all this type of stuff, like really bad stuff, has happened throughout history, and people living in those times thought the world was
yes.
ending too. You know what I mean? Like honestly, if
No,
I was living
completely.
through World War II, especially if I was
Yeah,
like in Europe or Japan or something like that, like I would think, oh, the world is ending.
yeah.
You know?
No, it's true. And also even back to nature, like fire is part of the life cycle of these places.
Yes,
And the
but it needs to
problem,
be done naturally, not because someone did a gender reveal party in San Bernardino
no,
and burned
completely.
down the entire Southern California forest.
Yeah, and we like overdevelop and mess up these places where like a burn would have usually stopped, but like didn't.
Right.
It's this is why I'm always like, nature is our god. I'm sorry guys, but it freaking is. Although one thing that is a weird comfort, like whenever I do think like, oh my god, is this the end of humanity and stuff? And I know people are like, we're the virus, but I do love that, like, give it 100 years and like nature could take it all back. You know what I mean?
For
Like
sure.
when we die or whatever, it's like I find that very, very beautiful. Like when nature reclaims like abandoned temples or buildings, whatever, like it really is, it's very mystically beautiful.
It's just so scary that when people deny that the environment is under a threat, and I love these tweets that are going around where they're basically like quote tweeting people who have like poo-pooed like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's proposal of the Green New Deal, and they did one for Nancy Pelosi that she was obviously condescending to the Green New Deal, and she was like, because AOC and Nancy have had little conflicts before because Nancy is very establishment, very centrist. AOC is non-establishment, very progressive, and very left.
Yeah.
So they're like two opposite sides of the same party, basically. If the Democratic Party was a town, they live on the opposite side of the train tracks. But they quote tweeted her being like, yeah, I guess AOC's like, what is it called? The green thing or whatever. It was like some like awful quote, but they quote tweeted it and showed a picture of the Golden Gate Bridge. And it's a picture from a car on the Golden Gate Bridge. All of San Francisco is covered in a deep red hue because of the ash blocking the sun. And then it looks like the Sausalito side is just on fire, just fully ablaze of fire. It just looks insane, I mean, we really need to do something soon. uh I'm just, I mean, I know everyone is thinking the same thing and going through the same fears, but I'm just so worried about what's going to happen if Donald Trump wins again. What happens with who wins the House and the Senate, and honestly, even if he doesn't win, what are Biden and Kamala actually going to do when they get in office? I'm just so fucking worried about everything because it seems like we're coming down to things where it's like, yeah, so in the next few decades, this really is going to be a make or break for not just America, but the world,
I know. I met this girl who was like a part of some futurist group, and she was like, yeah, I'm part of like this global thing. I don't know, whatever. And she's like, but our goal is to like help humanity survive past 2030. And I was like, 2030? Yeah. And she's like, she goes around the world and finds like top minds to help. And I was like, okay, that's terrifying.
And literally, look at what nature is doing. Nature's giving us gifts, and we're saying no, we don't want them. Nature birthed little kids like Greta Thunberg and Little Miss Flint, Michigan. Um, these little girls. There are two little girls. One, this girl from the U.S. and Michigan, and one from Northern Europe. I forgot what country she's from.
Sweden.
Sweden. Okay. Who are like environmentally minded from a very young age. When I was 11, I was not doing or thinking about what Miss Flint, Michigan, or what Greta Thunberg was thinking about. These are people who are, I do believe that nature is like, you want to fix this? We're giving you people with the mindset to do so. But
that's a beautiful thought.
Yes, but we're not allowing them to actually be heard. And they're giving these people these brains and this thought.
That's really beautiful. That reminds me of something you said about homosexuality. Will you repeat that you said that even if they kill you all?
Oh yeah, because
I love this. I think it's really beautiful.
I mean, it's beautiful and it's morbid at the same time.
Of course.
Like, because homosexuals are not, it's not like it's in all cultures, right? So it's not a thing where, if you kill all, I don't know, let's say XYZ ethnic group, right? Certain ethnic groups have been completely wiped off the face of the earth and extinct through genocide. Like, there's been native tribes who are gone, right? Homosexuals will always keep being birthed because straight people create them. They naturally come out of they are so ingrained in humanity that no matter how many homosexuals you kill, how many homosexuals or queer people in general who you try to genocide, and even if you successfully accomplish it, you will never ever stop queer people from being born because they're so ingrained and connected to humans of all sexualities, to straight people. We are connected.
It's biological.
It's biological. You will always give birth. Straight society, whether it's in Europe, the Americas, Africa, Oceania, wherever, you can try to kill queer people. There will always be new queer people being born. We will always exist as long as humanity exists. And that's something that's very powerful. You cannot wipe homosexuals off the face of the earth. You can oppress them. You can murder them. You can imprison them. You can kill a lot of existing ones right now. There will always be a new generation of queer people born because we are part of you. We are connected to you. You give birth to us, So
I always think that it's such a beautiful sentiment.
It's part of nature. Nature will always win out. You will never get rid of honestly, I do think this about even just like people's skin colors and features and stuff like that. There's only so many like combinations of like phenotypes that humans can have. It's why, like, how like the Aboriginals of Australia and the natives of Papua New Guinea, they look black, right? When they do genetic tests, they're much more related to Polynesians or Asians from Southeast Asia. Why do they look black? They've been isolated on this island, and that's how they naturally evolved to look like how Black Africans look, right? But my point is that nature is always going to be repeating these things. Like, if you were to kill off, let's say, I don't know, for this example, let's say you kill off all blonde people, at some point in human evolution, as long as humans are existing, that those features will occur again. It will naturally occur at some point again, even if no one's related to like Europeans or anything. These things are something that nature is giving us naturally based off of the influence of the environment. And to fight it is not only cruel and inhumane, but it's useless. You're never going to stop nature from producing Black people. You're never going to stop nature from producing homosexuals. It's not going to happen. What you're doing is just causing suffering and death to your fellow human beings right now, which is awful. But nature will always win out in the end. it will.
Yeah, which I love that. I'm like, don't come for the queen. Like, you'll always lose.
Yeah.
You'll hurt yourself. That's the thing too about people who deny this. I'm like, you hurt yourself. Like, even if you don't care about other people, like, you think you're gonna win, you think you're not gonna be saved from the tsunami or the fire or the hurricane. Like,
Right.
no, girl, she comes for all of us.
And there is a direct link between racism and racist systems and anti-environmentalism and disregard for the health of the planet and nature. Because if
capitalism isn't inherently anti-environment.
Absolutely. But if you hate people for the color of their skin or the difference in their culture or the way that they speak or they look or wherever they come from or whatever reason that you hate them, people are part of nature. You hate nature and you hate what nature has created. Nature has said, I have created Black people. They were the first types of humans. Nature has spoken, and if you keep hating these people, that's a form of hating nature. Because they are as connected to the earth as you or me, as the tree growing in the forest. There is a direct link between racist and anti-environmentalism. It's true.
Which I just read How to Be an Anti-Racist, and which he talked about, which also that other book I was talking about, the nature one, is interesting, but he talked about how basically even racism is caused by capitalism. Like, the whole point of racism was, like, racism started when they're like, let's make money,
Absolutely.
And the capitalism is about like consuming resources and taking. I mean, I don't want to break into like colors of the wind right now, but it is true. Like, it's very interesting how these like systems are interlinked, but the nature thing has been really, really on my mind. I also, like, it's the only thing that like calms me down, or like when I feel anxious, like I don't want to watch more news or stand up or whatever. Like, I just want to watch nature documentaries.
They are so therapeutic, honestly. But I mean, it's true, because what you were saying about racism and capitalism, because capitalism is honestly the child of colonialism. Because remember, the whole point of colonies, whether you're making a colony in Africa or the Americas or Asia, is only to provide resources for the mother country, which I find that term offensive anyways. You're not a mother country of any place that you colonize. You're a perpetrator, you're a murderer, you're a colonizer. You're not the mother of anything, right? But it's meant to only provide money back to England or back to Spain or back to the US, because we're hugely colonial and imperialistic now, right? So it's meant to only create suffering for the people that you're subjugating, and only to create profit for the people who are doing the subjugating. And that's what people don't understand. Like, I say this time and time again, if you are a person of color who lives in Europe, you have every right to be there, because the money that created these beautiful buildings over the past 500 years, of the infrastructure of these beautiful cities, was paid for by African slaves, not only in the Americas, but African people that were subjugated in Africa, by Asians, by the natives in the Americas. All these people did work, provided resources against their will, for these big European powers. They have every right to be here. And the same goes for the US now. Where do you think a lot of our money comes from? Why we have so much money to spend on military spending? It's not because we're amazing at business. The US is terrible. We're in such debt. No, it's because we are excellent at imperialism and excellent at capitalism.
The other thing that my nature book said, which blew my mind, is like, a lot of justification for capitalism, for these systems, right, is like, it's nature, man. Someone's king of the jungle. Somebody dominates somebody. Like, look at any nature program, right? It's like the weak eating the whatever. But this book said,
right,
that is not true.
No.
In the jungle, every life form is aware of the life form, because lions know which plants they can't fuck with.
Right.
The beetle knows which, creature it can get its things from. So it's like, it's entirely interconnected. It's not these single solitary creatures. Like, it's right. Entirely this ecosystem. So it's not hierarchy, because if a plant, which is the lowest non-conscious form of life, if it can kill the lion, then that's not a hierarchy, is it?
No, it's not. It's actually a Mobius strip. It's a Mobius circle. We're all interconnected, like you just said. A lion always has a way to be undone by something small, by a very poisonous snake. A
Yeah.
lion can always be undone by something very small. I think that's also a great metaphor for standing up to massive governments, massive political parties, lobbyists, capitalistic, racist systems. You feel so small and you feel so hopeless. But remember, even the biggest creature can be undone by the smallest creature. There is a
Yeah,
way.
and we are, which I had told you too, that I'm looking to volunteer for the polls on election day,
Yeah.
because we also, it's so easy to be like, oh my god, this whole system, oh my god, Big Brother, oh my god, Facebook, all this stuff. But it's like, but the whole system is not, it's not a monolith. It's a trillion little cells,
Yeah.
people creating these little systems and communities. So like, one, all politics is local. You want to start in your own backyard. Like, that is something you can do. It's something you should do. Like, be involved. I mean, I feel like we all should, like, it should be reversed. Like, I'm like, we should learn like our local governments before we learn about federal government, you know?
That's honestly true. And so many people, like I think we talked about this on a few episodes ago, when they vote for local things, a lot of people are so uninformed about what's going on in our local government.
It's the thing you're the least informed about. You're always
Right.
like, I know this, this, and that, but yeah.
So you're voting based off of identity politics. I've heard so many people, and I'm guilty of this too, who you look and you go, I'm just going to vote for the Democrat who is a woman or queer or of color, and I'm going to vote for them. And it's like, that's incorrect, because especially like in cities like LA, this the last time that we did a local election, which I think was wasn't that like right before the pandemic that
Yeah, I
happened?
feel like within the last year.
Yeah. When I was voted, this was the first time that I actually researched every single fucking Joe Schmo on that ballot. And I've never did that before, right? What I did is I took my dad's advice, who, he's an old guy set in his ways. He's this Americanized Chicano dude from East LA in his late 70s. Like, he was like, I just take the recommendations by the LA Times. But then when I did the research, the LA Times gives voter recommendations for very conservative candidates, even in the Democratic Party. They're very conservative Democrats, and a lot of them don't have good records. So I started to think for myself. I looked into the history of a lot of these candidates, and, the candidate that I thought, oh, I'm going to vote for them based off of identity politics because it's this Chicana chick who is lesbian or whatever. You find out that person wasn't a good candidate. She has a terrible record. And then you end up voting for this other person who you didn't even take seriously because there's some like person that was a teacher or something. And you're like, oh yeah, well, they don't have experience. And then you look into their record, working, in social issues, in local government and grassroots campaigns, like, and then you see, oh no, this person actually would be much better for the job. But what it takes is for you to do the research, because not all of these local candidates can get endorsements and money from people in order to effectively get their message out in a large enough way for you to hear from them. Some of them can, and they're good, but a lot of them who can do it are bad, and they're getting this money because of deals that they're making and by nefarious means. So I think we need to really take the time to research who's on the ballot and who and why we're voting, because we are missing some amazing candidates who people just never give the time of day because they're not popular.
And a lot of people slip through, like these legacy like council people and stuff, like,
Yeah.
And they're kicked back also because they know you don't read it and they know you're not voting, and this, that, and the other. Like, also, I want to say something else you brought up was a good point, is like, whatever their title is and then looking at what they've actually done. One thing about AOC that bothers me is that, yes, she was a bartender, but she was a grassroots organizer for Bernie. Like, and that's like totally chopped out of her narrative. So people are like, she's this person who doesn't know. And it's like, no, she actually like majored in like economics and did like, so it's not this like, it's not like she didn't know anything. You know what I mean?
Of course, but I also love, but I love that she's actually embraced people being like, oh, you were a bartender. And she's embraced it in a positive way, because she's been like, yeah, bartenders, workers, just regular citizens who work just, hard labor type jobs, where it's not glamorous. They're not government workers, just people working as a waiter, as a bartender, as a janitor, whatever. They matter. They are smart. They are politically minded. They are capable of a lot. And in many ways, as we're seeing with AOC, they are better for the job than most of these people who are Ivy League educated or have like a long political history. Because
No,
remember,
completely. Yeah,
yeah,
completely. And I that is, of course, it's an important part of our narrative, but it's not the
I get what you're saying.
only thing. It gets buried too, that I'm
Right,
like, she's also quite qualified from her own endeavors.
right,
Like, but
right.
yeah.
People have tried to use the bartender thing to discredit her. And what she's done is she's been like, oh, you think this is a weapon? Okay, cool. It's actually my superpower. I'm a bartender. And this proves to people that the workers are just as capable of governing as the people who we think are in the governing class. Because there is, by and large, a class of people who we think like, oh, they're kind of groomed to govern. That's not okay, you
Yeah.
know?
So we got to get local. We got to go out to nature. But seriously, it is like, it is very, I don't know. It's the only thing that makes me feel like I have any sort of like control or movement or participation. And again, too, I also try to like comfort myself with like, I mean, I don't want us shifting into authoritarianism and fascism, which is like real on the edge right now. But like, even within those systems, like there's always been a resistance. There's never a like dictatorship that happens and is like, we're a dictatorship now and cool, everyone submits to us. All that happens is everybody's constantly, like backing up to it. Or like even my mom works in like healthcare clinics, and she would talk to the older doctors like pre Roe v. Wade, and she's like, what happened with abortions? And they were like, we did them and said they were miscarriages. Like, so what? I did that my whole career,
Yeah, I mean, it's true. Like what you're saying about authoritarianism and fascism, it happens in little incremental stages until suddenly where it's too far gone and you can't do anything anymore without a major war. And I just fear that is kind of the direction that we're heading, because in the past 4 years, we've seen so many rights overturned. Women's reproductive rights to get an abortion when they say that they want one, they're stripping that away. I mean, listening to Last Week Tonight with John Oliver is amazing, and they were talking to this worker in Texas, I think, and she had just turned away a 13-year-old girl who couldn't get an abortion, and she's like, and so now in order for her to get and she's like, and I had to legally turn her away, and she was crying, and she was like, that 13-year-old girl, she was raped, and in order for her to get an abortion now, she's going to have to drive 200 miles to New Mexico and pay $5,000. And she goes, we know that's not going to happen. She's going to have a baby. And that's absolutely heinous. Like what's happening on the border, what's happening with Black people, what's happening with gay adoption, what's happening with even just gay people trying to aid in the pandemic, can't donate blood platelets, can't donate antibodies, can't donate blood because we're gay, and they believe that what's inside us is dirty. And that's directly hurting people who are sick in the hospital, because you're now cutting a percentage of the population who is willing to donate. You're cutting them because of a bias and a prejudice that's based not in fact at all. And the one thing that everyone always says about it is, why is there a prejudice against gay men donating blood? They test all blood. They test all the blood.
Yeah.
If it like
that is crazy.
A straight person can go out and get fucked or fuck someone, no condom, for years. They can shoot up heroin. They can still go and donate blood, right? Because they're going to test the blood. So if they have hepatitis or if they have HIV, the blood is thrown away. So why does that change with the gay man? If the gay man does have something in his blood, you throw away the blood. Why are you denying gay men from donating, And even these new things that they try to do are insulting. Now you have to wait a year of abstaining from sex as a gay man in order to donate blood, which is so insulting, because what that's saying is your sex is wrong and it's gross, but you can be a part of society and donate blood and help if you abstain from this sin that you're committing for 1 year, and then we will consider you clean enough to take blood. And now they reduced it to 3 months of abstinence, which is like, I'm sorry, are straight people required to do 3 months of abstinence? No, in no way. And honestly, it's only gay and bisexual men. Lesbians don't have a ban. They don't have a ban on them, and trans people don't even have a ban. It's gay men only. Yeah. It's an absolutely crazy time. I try to not have these conversations, but I kind of have to, because if I I can't keep talking to my boyfriend about it because he will break down crying. There's sometimes that he just tells me like I can't keep talking about this because I just need to, it's just stressing me the fuck out, and I get it. I understand,
No,
you know?
I know. And that's why, same thing, it's like we all shut down, and I tend to paralyze, but really trying to, really trying to like be local and stuff. What's cool is like a lot of companies too have now like, which is big, especially in like Silicon Valley, like these kind of big ass like capitalist countries or whatever, like a lot of them are now doing like mandatory paid election day paid time off, which is usually not the case,
Right.
and also a big impediment to why people don't go. So that's very heartening to see some of those things. And I don't know, all you can do is just like local freaking in LA, these insane heat waves. Like I've been like sending like money to Water Drop LA because like it's so insanely hot, and these poor homeless people, like it's just,
That's great.
I don't know. Hey, guys, try to do something, one little thing, you know?
It's true. And I mean, I'm just so worried about, the main thing that I'm really worried about, I'm worried about a lot of things, but the main thing that I'm worried about right now is the election and the voting fraud and tampering on the part of the government that's happening, with them tampering with the USPS. What really, really hit home to me about how far Trump and his administration are going to um, prevent the election from being a fair election is when I just saw that news story that happened this past week here in LA, in Glendale. A truck, an anonymous truck that's not a USPS truck, was seen dumping a shit ton of mail into this random parking lot in Glendale. And some Armenian lady who has a salon watched it happen, called the cops. Then a USPS manager came to collect the mail, and the USPS manager was like, I don't know what this is doing here, but I need to collect all this mail, because through this mail I can trace whose route this was and what the fuck happened to this mail. Then the cops start to investigate. They found other mail in alleys all around Glendale, just mail thrown out in alleys. So someone is paying some USPS workers to take mail, off offload it so that it can be dumped. And this is being done so that people are not getting their ballots, and so that when they finally request a ballot and it gets to them, when they send it in, it's not going to be counted. Because in many states, if you are sending in your ballot, even though it's postmarked before election day, if it's arrives after, they're not going to count it. It's absolutely insane, and it's absolutely a voter suppression in order for Trump to continue his presidency. But what I'm very scared of is, if Trump does lose, that he doesn't concede the office, right? And he'll try to stay there, which now will put the entire country into a state of like, is a coup happening? Do we need to go in and forcibly remove him? And if he loses, and we find out that he loses, and so many votes were not counted, now it's going to be a point of the other side of, what do we do? Do we start another impeachment process to push him out of office? Do we stage a coup? Do people do a re-election? Is he going to be forcibly removed? What's going to happen? I just don't understand how much more illegal activity needs to be done by our own administration before people step in and go, this is not a monarchy. This is not a king. Why can't we go in and stop this? This is a democratic country, but we're losing that status. And we need to stay and fight. But at a certain point, when is it worth fighting for at a certain point, you know?
But that is true. And it's absolutely insane. And like, even if this were a Democratic person, I would be like, this is absolutely unacceptable. Like, that's the thing. I go, even if it was my own team, I'd be like, no, this is a fucking problem for everybody.
Of course, yeah.
But I do love the small acts of resistance, being that like all NBA teams were like, we're turning all freaking stadiums or whatever
into the full places.
Like,
fuck you. Yeah.
These are huge. These are incredible ways to like move the hand. Like, it's very heartening, and at least it makes me feel more like heartened that like there are people with common sense. Like, there's a lot of people who feel like you do. It's not like suddenly everybody around you, like, you know, as I've talked about before, my grandmother was raised in Nazi Germany. She did actually experience Hitler, when people are like, this is Nazi Germany, I'm like, yes, correct, she was in it.
Yeah.
And the thing about that frightens me, I mean, everything, but something that always trips me out is that like it was illegal to say anything against the government, anything against Hitler. And like I've told this story before, like they were in the middle of a bombing and her dad was like, why is Hitler doing this? Like he's going to kill us all. And an SS officer popped out of nowhere. No, sorry, not SS, Gestapo, in the middle of a bombing and was like, what did you just say? And somebody had to vouch for her dad and be like, he's just crazy right now because we're being bombed.
Yeah.
Like that level. And so also you didn't know what your neighbors thought, that you didn't know if they were secretly pro or against.
Right.
I mean, you knew what the SS, you knew what the Nazi party officers felt, which is another distinction. Like there was like civilians, Nazi party, like those are two different things, you know? But you couldn't communicate freely. You couldn't say anything you said like would be held against you. You didn't know who was Gestapo. Like,
right.
So the paranoia of like not being able to go out in the streets and see, I know I feel crazy, but at least there's 20,000 other people in my neighborhood that feel, you know,
right,
share my beliefs. So that's very comforting to me that like we're not alone.
Yeah, it's a very frightening time. I mean, this is an insane time in history that I think I don't think we've been through anything like this in world history, because this is not just the US, this is a world history problem. Like, this is probably one of the biggest worldwide crises in terms of not just the environment and the pandemic, but this uptick of fascist governments around the world since World War II era. I honestly think it's as big as that, or getting as big as that. Because World War II, also that era, there was a major uptick in fascist regimes rising from Spain to Japan to Italy to Germany. There was a huge uptick in that happening, and we're seeing it now around the world. We have the US, we have England, we have Brazil, and we have India, and we have Venezuela. We have all these governments who are rising as new fascist regimes into power, which is a horrifying thing. And many people don't realize what's going on outside of the country, like what's going on in Brazil with Bolsonaro and their fucking crazy fascist president, or like what's going on in the Philippines with Duterte, their insanely fascist dictator-ish type president. And another thing that I was watching on Last Week Tonight with John Oliver that I knew nothing about, and this came out 6 months ago only, so that was just before the pandemic, was his episode that he did on India, and how India's President Modi is now trying to implement a new type of Indian imperialism and Indian supremacy, as he's calling it, and has even cited Hitler as a source of inspiration for what he was trying to do for Nazi Germany. So basically what's happening in India is he's now starting to revoke citizenship for certain Indians who don't happen to be on a special registry. And a lot of Indians don't know like what requires to be, what are the requirements to be in that registry. And, you know, remember, India is filled with like lots of different ethnic groups and lots of different languages that are native to India, that are native to the South Asian subcontinent. But if you don't fit into the like correct classes or the correct ethnic group according to this administration, you are not going to be registered on the National Citizenship Registry. So the people who are not registered are going to be sent to certain camps and housing. And they're now building camps and housing around India to send these like undesirable people. And a lot of the workers who are actually building the camps are finding that they themselves are not on this registry. So a lot of them are like, I fear that I'm going to be back here as one of the people like imprisoned in this camp. And there's now rhetoric being like propaganda and rhetoric being pushed forth by the administration, like something that they're saying as like a fable for Indian supremacy, which is God created white people because he took the bread of humans. The humans are bread, right? In this fable, they took the bread out of the oven too early. God created black people because he took the bread out of the oven too late. God learned from his prior two mistakes and created Indian people because he took the bread out at the same time, which is now denoting a skin color type to be Indian, which is very dangerous, and here's why. People in South Asia and India come in many different skin colors. There are Indians who are as black as Africans. There are Indians who are as light-skinned as me, who are all native to India and who are completely South Asian. So what about those people who do not fit into this perfect like notion of brown Indianness, who are too dark or too light? Where do they fit in that equation, right? So Indians are taking to the streets and protesting, and a lot of this whole like registering Indians as real citizens, and these people they're revoking citizen, a lot of them are being aimed at Muslim Indians because they want India to be like a Hindu country, and Muslim Indians are not fitting into that, and so they're discriminating against them, and they're literally building camps for them. And Trump actually called Modi the father of India. He just pulled that out of his dry ass, right? And John Oliver made an excellent point that actually the father of India is actually Gandhi is considered the father of India, who preached that India should be a secular nation where anyone should be able to practice whatever religion they want to. And now that's being turned back. And a lot of Indians are in the streets protesting, being like, we feel like a lot of work that has been done the past 100 years or more is now being overturned. You know, we like our freedom of religion. We like our ethnic diversity. Sure, there are problems, but we don't want to be on this thing of some Indians are citizens and some Indians aren't. Like, it's very Nazi Germany. Like, look at what was happening with the Jews. German people, Polish people, Austrian people, right, who were citizens, but because they were Jewish, they are now no longer citizens of the country that they were born and raised in. That's exactly what's happening in India, and you starting to see inklings of that happening here in the U.S. I was reading a lot of stuff, and I'll shut up after this. I was reading a lot of stuff about unlawful deportations of American citizens that, of course, were occurring back in the 1930s, but also now. There's unlawful deportations of American citizens now where they're not believing documents that the families are coming, like birth certificates, like IDs, like school records. They're not believing these documents, and they're still deporting these people back to countries that they have never lived in. And some of them are even people that have no heritage shared with this country. One of the most famous stories was this mentally ill Black man from Georgia who was deported to Mexico. He did not speak Spanish. He had no Mexican ancestry. He had never been to Mexico. They deported him back to Mexico. He wallowed in Mexico, Nicaragua, and Guatemala for a long time until he happened to get lucky and run across a U.S. embassy worker in either Nicaragua or Guatemala who took pity on him and started his proceedings at the embassy to get him back to the country. When they finally got him back to Atlanta, they tried to deport him again. And he won only $175,000 in his court case. That's all he won. So what I'm saying is these things are slowly happening here too. That the same things that are happening in India or in China. China is another fascist country that's coming, like what they're doing to the Uyghurs.
They've been fascist, like they've been.
Yeah.
It's been
but they're putting Muslim Chinese people because they're browner, darker skin, and because they practice Islam into these camps. And they're trying to basically what they're doing with what they did with the indigenous people, strip them of their culture and Chinese, mainstream Chineseify them.
Yeah.
Right. That's what they're trying to do. It's absolutely an insane time in history. Did you think that we would be living in a time that had more similarities with World War II era than with the 1990s?
It's interesting because I personally, because of my grandmother, this has been my big, when people are fear of the future, this has literally been my fear since I was a child, is to live in a dictatorship, like a Nazi Germany. Right. It was the specter. And for me, just because I know my grandma, it was much more living history to me than I think, maybe other people, but it's literally been my fear always, a civil war will come, I will live in a dictatorship. And it's not fun to see it realized. I'm like, fuck. So guys, go work the polls, go help a homeless initiative in your neighborhood. God, sorry, it's not funny.
it's not funny, but it's just not a funny time, and I mean, I'm saving my funny for the scripts that I'm writing and for the occasional Zoom shows that I do, because other than that, it's real hard right now to find something funny about anything, you know, unless it's like just absurdly dark that you have to laugh, you know.
Oh man. Well,
But
guys,
anyways, guys,
donate, volunteer,
and watch me on the El Rey Network. Honestly, if you do want to see me be funny and talk about stuff that's like much lighter, tune into the El Rey Network, because this episode we're talking about the like fads of the 2000s, and I'm actually going to be on next week's episode where did we talk about? I forgot what we talked about, but it was something silly and fun. So tune in,
guys. Just tune in, like, subscribe, all that stuff.
Yes.
All right. Well, until next time.
Bye.
Bye.